Ladies and gentlemen, we all know what it feels like to be caught in the web of someone else's expectations, or worse, in their manipulation. In those moments, we question our worth, our actions, and whether we should apologize for simply existing. But today, I want to talk about the power of absence, not as an act of cruelty, but as a powerful and necessary boundary that honors our sense of self. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep others out. They are the lines we draw to protect our emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They serve as markers that define what is acceptable in our lives and what isn't. When we fail to establish boundaries, we open ourselves up to the possibility of being drained by others' needs, demands, and toxic behaviors. Boundaries help us maintain our sense of self, ensuring that we don't lose ourselves in the process of caring for others. When we set boundaries, we are making a commitment to prioritize our own needs and values. This act doesn't mean we care any less about those around us, but it is a recognition that in order to truly care for others, we must first care for ourselves. Often we are taught to be selfless, to give until we are empty, but this model is unsustainable. Boundaries aren't selfish, they are an act of self-preservation. Setting boundaries means learning to say no when we need to. It means recognizing when a situation, relationship, or commitment is depleting us more than it's giving back. It's about understanding that saying no is just as important as saying yes. It's about stepping back when necessary so we can step forward in a healthier, more balanced way. Boundaries also require us to be clear about our values and non-negotiables. When we understand what is essential to our peace of mind and our happiness, we can more effectively communicate our limits to others. Without these clear boundaries, we risk being taken advantage of, misused, or manipulated. At the same time, we also risk losing our own identity in the process. We become enmeshed with others, forgetting who we are and what we truly need. The power of boundaries lies in their ability to create the space we need to thrive. By honoring our own limits, we teach others how to honor us too. In the absence of boundaries, there is chaos, miscommunication, and resentment. But when we are firm in our limits, we open the door for healthier, more authentic connections. Boundaries allow us to engage with the world around us without losing sight of who we are, protecting our inner peace while also giving us the space to grow. Self-worth is an internal measure of who we are based on our values, beliefs, and personal experiences. It's the quiet recognition of our inherent value as individuals, independent of what anyone else thinks or says. It's not contingent on success, appearance, or the approval of others. When we truly understand our self-worth, we can stand tall in our own identity, unshaken by the changing tides of others' opinions. This sense of worth is rooted in self-acceptance, acknowledging both our strengths and flaws without judgment. External validation, on the other hand, is the praise, approval, or recognition we receive from others. It can be affirming in the short term, offering a sense of accomplishment or belonging, but it is fleeting. This validation is often situational, dependent on others' perceptions, which can change with time, circumstances, or moods. When we place our worth in the hands of others, we leave ourselves vulnerable to being defined by external forces and unpredictable and unstable foundation. The danger of relying on external validation is that it can make us feel disconnected from our true selves. We may begin to shape our identities around what others expect or want from us, constantly seeking approval to feel worthy. This pursuit can lead to a cycle of insecurity, because as we chase validation, we can never truly satisfy the hunger for external recognition. We may even find ourselves lost in trying to be someone we are not, losing touch with our authentic selves in the process. When we place too much importance on external validation, we risk becoming overly dependent on praise or affirmation from others to feel good about ourselves. This can make us fragile, as our sense of self is constantly subject to the whims of others. If we don't receive the validation we seek, we may experience feelings of inadequacy, rejection, or doubt. This reliance can be emotionally exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. In contrast, true self-worth is grounded in the understanding that we are valuable simply because we exist. We don't need others to tell us who we are or how valuable we are. We know it for ourselves, and we can hold on to that belief regardless of external circumstances. When we cultivate self-worth from within, we become less reliant on outside opinions to feel whole. We are able to face criticism with resilience, knowing that our worth is not contingent on the approval of others. Self-worth is an empowering force because it allows us to act with authenticity and confidence. When we no longer chase validation, we are free to create our own path, make decisions based on our values, and live life on our own terms. It is the foundation of emotional independence, the core belief that we are enough, and that we don't have to prove anything to anyone in order to deserve love, respect, and acceptance. External validation may come and go, but self-worth remains steady and true, a constant source of inner strength. Emotional manipulation is a subtle, often insidious form of control in which one person seeks to influence or exploit another's emotions to their own benefit. It can take many forms: gaslighting, guilt tripping, passive-aggressive behavior, or playing on someone's insecurities. The manipulator creates a false narrative, making the victim doubt their perception of reality, question their worth, or feel responsible for someone else's emotions. At its core, emotional manipulation aims to make the victim feel like they are the cause of the manipulator's unhappiness or discomfort, while deflecting responsibility from the manipulator's own actions or behaviors. What makes emotional manipulation so difficult to identify is that it often involves twisting the truth, making the manipulator appear vulnerable or well-intentioned. This creates confusion and self-doubt in the victim, who may feel guilty or overly responsible for the emotional state of the manipulator. The manipulator may act as though they are the victim, while in reality, they are the ones who are trying to control the situation to maintain power over the other person. This cycle can be exhausting for the person being manipulated, as they feel trapped in a dynamic where they are constantly seeking approval or reassurance. Accountability, on the other hand, is the practice of taking responsibility for one's actions, choices, and their consequences. It requires self-awareness and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, even when it's difficult. When we hold ourselves accountable, we stop shifting blame onto others or justifying harmful behaviors. Accountability is essential in breaking free from cycles of manipulation, whether we are the ones being manipulated or the ones perpetuating the manipulation. Without accountability, emotional manipulation thrives, as there is no recognition of the harm being done. In relationships where emotional manipulation occurs, accountability can be the catalyst for change. It involves recognizing how our words, actions, or behaviors may have affected others and taking ownership of those impacts. For the person being manipulated, accountability means realizing that they are not responsible for another person's emotional state, and that it is not their job to fix or appease the manipulator. It's a step toward regaining control over one's own emotions and actions, rather than being at the mercy of someone else's manipulation. For those engaging in emotional manipulation, accountability is essential to breaking the cycle of control. It requires an honest examination of one's behavior and the willingness to change. It's not about justifying actions or making excuses. It's about recognizing that manipulating someone else's emotions is harmful and destructive. The act of being accountable involves not only acknowledging past mistakes, but also making a commitment to avoid repeating them, actively working to build healthier, more respectful connections. Accountability isn't just about facing the consequences of one's actions, it's also about fostering a sense of integrity and respect for others. It's the practice of showing up authentically, communicating honestly, and owning up to mistakes. It's about being mindful of how our actions impact those around us and understanding that we are not entitled to manipulate or control others for our own benefit. When both parties in a relationship practice accountability, It creates space for healing, understanding, and growth, allowing the emotional manipulation to be addressed and ultimately resolved. Vulnerability is often viewed as a weakness in a world that prizes strength, independence, and control. Yet, true vulnerability requires immense courage. It means allowing ourselves to be seen, to expose our deepest truths, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with opening our hearts. When we are vulnerable, we risk being hurt, judged, or misunderstood. But vulnerability is also the path to deeper connection, to authentic relationships, and to living a life aligned with our true selves. It's through vulnerability that we create space for growth and healing, not only within ourselves, but also within the relationships we cultivate. Choosing vulnerability is an act of trust in ourselves and trust in others. It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, that we are not always in control, and that it's okay to be imperfect. Vulnerability invites us to let go of the facade of invulnerability that we often wear to protect ourselves from judgment or rejection. It's about saying, I am enough as I am, without needing to be anything more than human. This openness allows others to see us for who we truly are, flaws and all, without the need to hide behind a mask of strength or invincibility. However, in a world that often equates vulnerability with weakness, choosing silence can be just as powerful an act. Silence is not the absence of communication, but a conscious choice to withdraw from the noise, from the chaos, and from the endless demands of others. It is a sacred space where we can reconnect with ourselves, reflect on our emotions, and regain clarity. In moments of silence, we allow ourselves the opportunity to process our feelings without the pressure of external expectations or the need for validation. It is a time to listen to our own inner voice, the one that is often drowned out by the demands and distractions of the outside world. Silence also offers a way to protect our vulnerability. In times of emotional turmoil or when we are feeling exposed, choosing silence can be an act of self-preservation. It gives us the space to regain composure, to reflect on our feelings, and to decide how we want to respond. Silence is not about avoidance, it's about creating a pause between stimulus and reaction, allowing us the time to choose how we engage with the world around us. In this stillness, we can decide whether to speak, to act, or to simply hold space for ourselves until we are ready. The courage to be vulnerable and choose silence often go hand in hand. Both are acts of personal power, of reclaiming our autonomy over our emotions, our bodies, and our voices. Vulnerability requires the courage to expose ourselves emotionally, while silence requires the courage to resist the pressures to constantly perform or react. Both choices invite us to live more intentionally, to protect our energy, and to honor our own needs. They challenge the expectation that we must always be talking, always be doing, and always be seeking approval. Instead, vulnerability and silence remind us that it's okay to simply be, to allow ourselves to experience the full spectrum of emotions, to sit with discomfort, and to trust that we don't have to explain ourselves or prove anything to anyone. It's in these quiet, vulnerable moments that we can truly begin to understand who we are and what we need to thrive. Healing through distance is a concept that might seem counterintuitive in a world that values connection and closeness. We are often told that in times of pain, we should seek comfort in others, that healing is something we do together. However, there are times when the most profound healing comes from stepping away, from creating physical or emotional space between ourselves and the sources of our pain. Distance doesn't mean abandoning others or shutting them out completely. It means giving ourselves the time and space needed to reflect, to process, and to restore our emotional and mental well-being. When we experience hurt, whether from a relationship, a loss, or a traumatic event, it can feel overwhelming, like we are drowning in the emotions that come with it. In these moments, being surrounded by others can sometimes intensify the pain. Well-meaning friends and family may offer support, but the noise of their voices and their well-meaning advice can drown out the quiet whispers of our own hearts. The distance allows us to separate from the external noise and focus inward. It creates the necessary stillness for us to confront our feelings, to acknowledge the hurt, and to begin the process of understanding what we need to heal. Distance is also about removing ourselves from environments or relationships that contribute to our emotional distress. When we are constantly surrounded by negativity, toxicity, or unresolved conflict, our ability to heal is stifled. We may find ourselves constantly rehashing the same painful narratives, replaying the same harmful interactions, or feeling drained by the energy of those around us. By stepping away, whether physically or emotionally, we allow ourselves the time to break free from these cycles, to put some distance between the wounds and the environment that exacerbates them. In this space, healing becomes a process of rediscovery. Distance gives us the opportunity to reconnect with ourselves, to remember who we are apart from the pain and the people who have hurt us. It's in the quiet moments of solitude that we can listen to our own needs and desires, separate from the expectations and demands of others. It's in these moments of distance that we can begin to understand what it means to take care of ourselves, to set boundaries, and to cultivate the self-love that is necessary for true healing. Healing through distance also allows us to gain perspective. When we are too close to a situation or a person, it's easy to become engulfed by it, to lose sight of the bigger picture. Distance allows us to step back and see things from a different vantage point. We begin to understand that we are not defined by the pain we've experienced, and that the hurt we feel is not a permanent state. It gives us the clarity to process our emotions without being constantly reminded of the source of our distress. We can reflect on the lessons learned, the growth that has come from the pain, and the ways in which we've become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. As we heal, the distance also creates room for forgiveness, not just for others, but for ourselves. We may carry guilt, shame, or regret about past decisions, or we may hold on to anger or resentment toward those who have wronged us. The space that distance creates allows us to soften, to let go of the weight of these emotions. It helps us release the need for resolution or closure from others, realizing that healing is an internal process not dependent on anyone else's actions. The distance is not about running away from pain, but about choosing to face it on our own terms, in our own time. It's about trusting ourselves enough to know that we can weather the storm of emotions without being constantly swept up in them. As we heal through distance, we learn to stand on our own, to reclaim our sense of peace, and to emerge stronger than before. It is an act of self-respect and self-love that honors the journey of recovery, knowing that sometimes the most healing thing we can do is step back and give ourselves the space to breathe. Non-reaction is often misunderstood as passivity or weakness, but in reality, it can be one of the most powerful tools in maintaining emotional balance and personal peace. When we react impulsively to situations, especially those that trigger us, we are giving away our power. We are allowing external forces to dictate our emotional state, often without taking a moment to pause and consider whether that reaction truly serves us. Non-reaction, on the other hand, is a conscious choice to hold back, to step away from the emotional storm, and to create a space where we can respond thoughtfully rather than react instinctively. The impact of non-reaction is profound because it disrupts the cycle of conflict and escalation. In many situations, especially those involving confrontation or provocation, our immediate impulse is to engage, defend, or retaliate. Yet when we choose not to react, we break the chain of negativity that fuels the interaction. Our silence or calm presence can have a transformative effect, disarming aggression or diffusing tension. By not reacting in the expected way, we force others to reconsider their approach, as their usual tactics no longer have the desired effect. Non-reaction doesn't mean indifference. It means choosing not to let the actions of others dictate our emotional responses. It is about recognizing that we are in control of how we respond to the world around us. The impact of this self-control is that it fosters emotional resilience. Instead of being swept away by every emotional wave, we learn to ride them, observing them without being consumed by them. Over time, this practice strengthens our emotional endurance, allowing us to face difficult situations with greater equanimity. Furthermore, non-reaction is a powerful way to preserve our energy. Reacting to every slight or provocation drains us, leaving us mentally and emotionally exhausted. By withholding reaction, we conserve our energy for what truly matters. This allows us to direct our attention to what is important, whether that is self-care, personal growth, or nurturing positive relationships. Non-reaction shifts the focus from what others are doing to what we need to do for our own well-being. Non-reaction also teaches others about our boundaries and our values. When we choose not to engage with negative behavior or unnecessary drama, we communicate that we will not tolerate being pulled into unhealthy dynamics. We show others that we value our peace more than we value the need to prove ourselves or to win an argument. This, in turn, can encourage healthier, more respectful interactions as those around us begin to recognize that we are not easily swayed by external forces. The impact of non-reaction is not just external, it is also deeply internal. When we refrain from reacting in ways that are harmful or unproductive, we create space for reflection and clarity. In moments of emotional turmoil, taking a step back allows us to process our feelings more effectively. It gives us the time to understand the root of our emotions and to consider the best course of action before we speak or act. Non-reaction helps us cultivate mindfulness, a state of awareness that allows us to be present with our emotions without being controlled by them. In relationships, non-reaction can be particularly powerful. Often when we are triggered by someone else's behavior, we feel the urge to retaliate or to argue our point. But when we choose not to react, we demonstrate emotional maturity and self-control. This doesn't mean avoiding necessary conversations or suppressing our feelings, but it does mean choosing the right moment and the right way to communicate. By not reacting immediately, we create space for more thoughtful, productive dialogue where both parties can express themselves without the conversation descending into conflict. Finally, non-reaction is a form of self-respect. It is the act of choosing peace over drama, of not allowing others to disturb our inner harmony. It is an acknowledgement that we are worthy of maintaining our emotional stability and that we have the power to decide how much of our energy we give away. Non-reaction is a way of saying that we are not defined by the actions of others, that our peace is not negotiable, and that we have the power to remain grounded no matter what is happening around us. It is a practice of sovereignty over our own emotions, a declaration that we will not be swayed by external forces, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. In conclusion, the true strength lies not in how we react, but in our ability to choose how we engage with the world around us. The power of non-reaction, the courage to embrace vulnerability, and the wisdom of setting boundaries are all interconnected threads that shape our emotional resilience and personal growth. By stepping back, creating space, and preserving our energy, we empower ourselves to respond with intention rather than react out of habit or impulse. We learn to protect our peace, honor our worth, and trust ourselves enough to navigate life with calm and clarity, even in the face of adversity. As we embrace these practices, we not only heal ourselves, but also become the example of emotional maturity and self-respect for others. In choosing silence over reaction, we reclaim our autonomy, and in embracing our vulnerability, we invite deeper, more meaningful connections. Ultimately, it's in these moments of conscious choice that we find our true power, the power to live authentically, to lead with integrity, and to honor the peace we so deserve. So let us move forward with courage, knowing that our absence, our silence, and our boundaries are not weaknesses, but affirmations of our strength and our commitment to living fully in alignment with who we truly are.